Hey everyone, welcome back to the Pac South podcast. The committee has released the rankings, and oh boy, Pat, we're going to jump right into this thing. As something of a supporter for the Notre Dame Irish, I want to hear your raw thoughts immediately.
Yeah, Sunday was a tumultuous day for me. I woke up thinking that after the SEC championship, all right, well, that means Notre Dame's probably going to slot into that nine seed and face Oklahoma in Norman. Decent matchup. Oklahoma's looked shaky offensively. Notre Dame's really come into their own. I was feeling pretty good about that. And then um, the selection show runs around and decides to drop the bomb on us that not only did Alabama not drop to 10 or potentially miss the playoff, but that Notre Dame would not be in the playoff either. And that the Miami Hurricanes had gotten the last at large bid, which honestly, I wasn't super upset with that aspect. If we're going to go off head to head performance, Miami beat Notre Dame. I totally understand the logic there. Where I had more of a gripe was with Alabama still getting into the playoff and not even dropping to the 10 seed and playing Texas A&M, staying in that 9 spot or slot, despite losing the SEC championship by 21 points and despite only really scoring that singular touchdown because of quite a few Georgia penalties that aided them along in that progression. This is an Alabama team that hasn't beaten a ranked opponent in, at this point, I believe it's over 60 days. Because I think on
Yeah.
Sunday it was at like 58
Was their
or
last ranked
57.
win not Georgia actually as well?
I think Tennessee. I feel
Okay,
like that was after the Georgia game.
third Saturday. Yeah, okay.
Um, because I
Yeah,
think it was
not a good
Tennessee.
November for them.
Yeah,
Not a
no.
good November for the time.
Um, they played one ranked team in the regular season in November. I guess if you want to count Saturday as December, sure. I mean, it's kind of a toss up. But they played one road matchup against the team that they're going to play again, actually home matchup, and they lost, and then they look crappy in a road Iron Bowl. And I feel like, I don't know, the national media didn't seem to think that there were any questions about Alabama as a candidate and Alabama as a team headed into the SEC championship, where I feel like there was a lot of questions. It was a team that started off shaky, figured it out, and then got shaky again. So,
Yeah.
especially with the Jam Miller injury, what is this Alabama team going to look like? They haven't been able to run the ball effectively all year. Now your best running back's hurt. I just don't understand the logic of the committee putting a team that's clearly regressing and a team that in their last showing looked extremely poor in over a team that has just totally steamrolled, albeit slightly easier schedule, but totally steamrolled since those first two games of the year, which again they lost by 4 combined points, not 40.
And both teams now are in the playoff. Like,
Correct.
one was a fringe playoff team that could have gone either way. A&M has solidified themselves in the playoff pretty much since like beginning of November. They were one of the three remaining undefeated teams in the country. Indiana now being one will go ahead and give their roses with their Big Ten championship game and win over Ohio State. We kind of saw that one coming. There's a second part to our prediction that will come later in the playoff. Potentially, we'll have to see if that actually comes to fruition. Um, but yeah, I have kind of major issues with this playoff this season, um, and multiple accounts. And I think one team that is not getting talked about, or is kind of sliding under the radar, and they shouldn't be, is Ole Miss. Ole Miss did not move after losing Lane Kiffin as a head coach. Um, and we've seen teams get penalized for this in the past. Like Florida State a few years ago, 13-0, undefeated. They lose Jordan Travis to an injury in, I believe that was the Florida game that year. Still go on to win the ACC title game. Was it in Charlotte?
I think it was the FCS game right before the Florida game.
Okay, so either way, Jordan Travis goes down end of the season. You could notice that their team took a step back without him. And yes, they were the only undefeated team remaining that season. But that Florida State team, you put them up against the other ones, they weren't of the right, the right make. Like those would have been blowouts. And yes, in the Orange Bowl, they had sit outs. Georgia had sit outs. I find it hard to believe that amount of sit outs is 60 points. Like Jordan Travis was that good on the offense. Obviously, a mojo in the locker room takes that into account. The committee made that decision on a player. This is a coach at Ole Miss who has built them up from nothing. This is the best team in history because of Lane Kiffin, because of what he does on offense. And I'm not saying that they should have missed the playoffs by any means. They should have been in. But the fact that they didn't move at all on this, Alabama doesn't move at all after being beat by 21. You had 4 weeks, I believe, of the right results that you could have positioned or postured Notre Dame and Miami to be in a more comparable location in the rankings to then do this. I mean, this is borderline TCU back in like 2014, 2015,
Yeah.
where the only team they had left was a very lowly Iowa State team. But I mean, they were number 3, so all you got to do is win and you're in. They beat them 55-3 and dropped 2 spots to miss the playoffs.
Yeah.
The committee has done this every couple of years. It's very, very frustrating, very annoying when there are easy fixes and things that we've known for a while. Like Notre Dame has continued to win their games. Miami post SMU has won their games, albeit 1 or 2 hiccups. But Alabama's done the same thing. Alabama barely beat South Carolina and Columbia, a team that finishes 4-8. Yes, it's the Iron Bowl, but still not a great Auburn team without a head coach. They only win by 7. And if you don't get a turnover in the last 40 seconds of that game, that may have been going overtime, and who knows what would have happened. You go to Atlanta, worst showing in Atlanta in years. I don't know if Alabama deserves this. And you have a BYU team who has 1 loss going in conference championship week. There are only 2 losses of the same team to Texas Tech, who has a first-round bye. Mm-hmm. No one's saying that they should have a chance, but maybe they should. I'll get off my soapbox now, but those are my feelings on the committee. I just don't understand how we can be at this point. This is year 2 of the 12 team. It's a little bit different this year, yes, but I mean this feels like a big swing and a miss to me. The seeding is wrong. I think the wrong teams got in. I mean, Alabama, if we're going to critique Notre Dame on their first 2 weeks, Alabama lost to a very bad Florida State team in week 1. Yeah. So if we're going to carry that to the end of the season, everyone needs to carry their weight through the end of the season.
Yeah, and I don't know, before we move on, I think that the dangerous thing here that the committee did with this decision is that they broke, we'll say, established precedent that they had in regards to the treatment of conference championships. If you look at the teams that have played in conference championships, pretty much since the advent of the 4-team playoff, even last year with the 12-team playoff, regardless of how much they dropped, every single team that lost in their conference championship dropped in the college football playoff rankings, except the University of Alabama. So does that mean that what really has been the biggest game in college football during championship weekend for 30-odd years since the SEC decided to do a championship is now just a glorified exhibition, and it's just, getting some practice in against like competition, let's say, because I don't understand how a team can perform poorly and not have any drop, right? Like, even if you drop them to 10 and, I don't know, let's say Notre Dame doesn't get in, but you slide Miami into the 9, at least it's showing that there's some type of penalty, I guess you could say, for poor performance. Otherwise, I don't know. I feel like, yes, there's always that argument you can't penalize a team for a championship game, but we didn't hear that argument literally until Alabama this year. If you look at 2017, Auburn, they had beaten Alabama and beaten Georgia in the regular season. They lose to Georgia in Atlanta. Alabama gets into the playoff over them. They wind up losing in the Peach Bowl regardless to UCF. But still, that's a team where there's a clear drop. You mentioned TCU, who was idle, dropped. Even TCU in 2022, when they did still get into the playoff, they were the 3 seed going into championship weekend. They lose that overtime thriller to K-State. They drop to the 4 seed and get Michigan. And I don't know. It's just a difficult, we'll say, pill to swallow. That all of a sudden losing a conference championship doesn't mean anything when clearly it meant something for BYU, right? The whole talk in, we'll say, mainstream media was the only way BYU's getting in is if they win that game. Well, how come that wasn't the talk about Alabama, who has the worst loss out of all of those teams that were sort of in the quote-unquote bubble? I just think it's confusing. And I understand the ranked wins that Alabama has, but at the same time, are we really saying that Tennessee is the team that we thought they were in October? Are we saying that Missouri is the team that we thought they were when Alabama played them? So I don't know. I feel like you have to continually evaluate and not just say, oh, well, they beat this team when they were 14, and that's a ranked win, right? You have to see how that season plays out for said team, the same way you mentioned with the Florida State loss in week 1.
Yeah, and another example for the championship weekend, Georgia coming off a national championship, undefeated season. They lose to Alabama by 3 points. Alabama gets into the playoff. This Georgia team plays the Orange Bowl against Florida State. They lose by 3 points and drop from 1 to I believe 5 or 6.
Yeah. Crazy. Crazy.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if it's the rotating ADs, commissioners, what have you, if there's this reason for it. But I mean, there needs to be a collective body that does it each and every year, and that's what they do. I mean, there's just no rhyme or reason to some of these big games other than, they're actually, no, I can't even find a reason for it. It's very mind-boggling to me, given when you're able to look at the full body of work. So here's hoping they figure it out. I don't know what. I mean, people are already talking about expanding a playoff. I don't think that's the fix. They're getting upset about the group of 5, but also, I mean, you look at these rankings have been abysmal. I mean,
yeah,
they are doing their hardest to keep them at. The fact that 7-5, 8-5 conference champion Duke is having reporters at the end of the game ask, "What's your, whatever your statement of getting over James Madison, who was sitting at number 25 and 12-1 conference champion in their own right," and he's saying it, and it's like, you have 5 losses. The only reason a 3-loss team got in last year was Clemson because they won the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like 3 losses has to eliminate you unless you're a conference champion and one of the top 5 ones. So
yeah, and I feel like, kind of building on what you said, I feel like people have to realize that G5 football isn't just total trash. We've seen instances repeatedly in the BCS era, in the CFP era, where, granted, maybe it wasn't on the big stage of like the 12-team playoff, or I know Cincinnati didn't look great, but they at least kind of hung with Bama for a little while in that game in the 4-team era. But we've seen scenarios where in major bowl games, G5 teams are beating Power 4 opponents. So it's pretty clear that gap is rapidly closing. So I just don't like the narrative that, I don't know, the G5 should have their own championship so that 9-3 Texas, who lost to a terrible Florida team, can get into the playoff.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. You look at Tulane, who's in the playoff now this year. That's been their team the last few years. I believe it was the Sugar Bowl 3 years ago against a Southern Cal team that people said that if there's a 12-team playoff, they're in. Guess what? You lost to Tulane. Very good game, I might add. Caleb
Great
Williams. It was very entertaining. But Tulane has done that. They've kind of been the void that UCF and Cincy created leaving the conference. Very funny enough, Cincy had a good year this year, but both teams major step backs. Tulane, great program right now, well deserved. They play a playoff contender in Duke earlier in the season, and for 55 of 60 minutes of that game, they beat the brakes off of Duke. They had a great final 5 minutes to make the score look closer, but I mean, if you put Tulane on that or Duke on the same field as some of these playoff teams, I mean, a team that they are quote unquote trying to argue to get in over, they lost to. So
Right.
there is a head to head playoff committee, and I hope that went into effect for it. Do you think? I mean, I mentioned that I don't think that we should change it, but in your opinion, is there a change to this? Do you think it should be only 12 teams? Do you say we expand to 14, 16? I mean, there's a lot of baggage that goes with all of the
Yeah.
contentions.
I feel like we've kind of opened Pandora's box at this point. When we expanded from the 14 playoff to the 12-team playoff, unfortunately, due to the nature of what college sports is becoming, I feel like we're just going to continue to see more and more expansion. Because we're arguing right now over a 10-2 Notre Dame team, 11-2 BYU team, who didn't get in, right? And I think both of those teams had phenomenal seasons, very very good football teams. But what if we were having that same argument about, let's say, I don't know, I'll just say a hypothetical 8-4 Missouri, right? Let's say they had finished 18 in the last CFP poll, and people were complaining that they didn't get in because, I don't know, James Madison or Tulane got that spot, right? I think we're just going to keep kicking the can down the road, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
and expanding doesn't really solve the issue of we don't have an effective way to unbiasedly evaluate teams and determine, okay, who is truly the 12 best, or 12, I shouldn't even say best, 12 most deserving teams for this playoff, right? Because, again, like we were just saying, the notion that James Madison or Tulane don't deserve to be here, I think is kind of ridiculous, because they won 12 games and Tulane won a very difficult American conference this year. I mean, North Texas is good. USF, while they kind of faded, had a very good year. Navy's had a good year. Like, it's not the American of like 3 to 4 years ago, where it was pretty much just Cincinnati and UCF, and near the end there, Tulane started making some noise. So I don't think expansion is the correct answer. I don't know. Maybe we go back to the computers, revamp the BCS, and use that to determine our 12. But I
I
feel like
wouldn't be opposed to like having a combination of the committee and
yeah,
the BCS, because it's clear the committee cannot complete a full
mhm,
25 you know, ranking. They can't. So I mean, I think if we had a combination of the BCS and the committee, you give them equal parts and they bring it all together, and then if there is a tiebreaker, then you take it back to the committee.
mhm,
Um, but I mean, I think it's clear like the committee, like some of these, like they're just not watching some of these games.
right,
Like
right,
it's very clear that they're not watching. Memphis and Tulane, but like, you only have so much time. All these games are going on at the same time, so
mhm,
like partly understandable, but that team is still making a run for the playoffs, so you need to know what they're doing. And I think if you watched 3 of their games, you would know, yeah, they're not really number 23 or 24. They're probably actually like 15, 16. And I mean, we'll talk more in depth as we get closer to the first round playoffs, I guess next week. Um, Tulane's my pick of the 4 away teams to get the win. Um, so, you know, neither here nor there. I think the committee really shot themselves in the foot, uh, changing the 12-team format after year one, all because
yeah,
Boise State was a top 4 champion. But that's the rules that they made, and that's what
right,
it was. And Boise State deserved it. Ashton Genty should have won the Heisman. I'll continue saying it. He was the Boise State Broncos last year and led them to the playoff, and they didn't have a bad game against a good Penn State team. But clearly, not what they wanted. They wanted Power 4 only. They changed it immediately. We are seeing even more issues after the change because it's now the third year in a row of change and talks of a fourth. So I don't know. I think they just need to sit on it, ride it,
Yeah.
and go. But nonetheless, we still have good football in the playoff. We'll talk about that next week. Just letting it air out our grievances, our thoughts, reactions, everything. One final hypothetical for you before we go into our predictions this week.
Mhm.
Um, Notre Dame's AD has come out and said they feel very hurt and damaged by the relationship with the ACC now. Do you think Notre Dame looks at moving? I know that the AD has said he has not had any conversations with any committee members or commissioners outside of Greg Sankey of the SEC. Um, do you think that that's something Notre Dame would benefit from?
I think potentially if Notre Dame did revisit their relationship with the ACC, I know Jim Phillips came out today and he talked about how it was a travesty in his or something along those lines that
Mhm.
Notre Dame didn't get in, right? Trying to do some damage control to make sure that they don't lose their golden goose, because really Notre Dame being an affiliate, we'll say, or conference member in every sport except football of the ACC is what is keeping Florida State, Clemson, schools like that in the conference at this point, if we're being frank, right? It's the ability that you'll have Notre Dame on your schedule a fairly decent amount, and that boosts A, viewership, and B, Notre Dame's been consistently good pretty much since the mid period, outside of 2016 under Brian Kelly when they went 4-8 or 3-9. And because of that, it's a good resume boost. If Notre Dame feels like the relationship's no longer beneficial, I feel like they would try to enter a similar relationship with the Big Ten.
Yeah,
Geographically speaking, it's way closer. Rivalry speaking,
old
that is where your
rivalries.
historic rivals are in Michigan State, Michigan, Purdue. Um, Obviously, Indiana is more of a basketball rivalry for Notre Dame, but still,
Hmm.
if you're looking at trying to revitalize your basketball program, which has slipped off since like the mid to late 2000s, joining the Big Ten is a much stronger basketball conference right now than the ACC is. So
Shockingly.
um, I feel like if Notre Dame were to leave, I think they're very vehement that they're going to maintain their independence. I don't think they're going to join a conference as a football member, but I could see them trying to spin this similar partnership with the Big Ten because, again, that preserves USC. It brings back the Michigan game. I know they've worked very hard to bring back Michigan State, but it kind of puts them on the schedule frequently again. And if you're scheduling, let's say they do the same deal that they have with the ACC, 5 Big Ten opponents every single year, you can keep, let's say, like those are your 3 mainstays. Maybe rotate in Purdue every now and then for the sake of the rivalry, but it also opens you up to games like Penn State, games like Indiana, now that they're a solid football team, Ohio State, um,
Southern Cal.
Southern Cal, right? Your traditional rivals where you are not having to, let's say, like sacrifice and manipulate your non-conference schedule if you're those teams because of the tie-in that Notre Dame has with the conference.
Do you think so? All right, hang on. Let me see how I want to word this. Uh, from my standpoint, yes, not having the direct affiliation with Notre Dame like yourself, I don't know if you can stay independent in the same way, like this affiliate uh, in 2025, 26 now. Um, I think that if I'm Notre Dame, I go for full conference membership, but say everything I can to keep the NBC, to keep my own television rights, which would be very tough for a conference to admit to. But I think that, especially in the case of going back to the Big Ten, I think they'd be more likely to than going to the SEC or being an affiliate.
Yeah.
The problem with those as well, though, those conferences are getting very large. And I think, especially in the SEC's case, they're at 16. They may allow an affiliate to be 17 in every other sport, but not football. Um, but you kind of need a dance partner. I think, especially if you go to the Big Ten, you need a dance partner, and who are you going to go get in
Yeah,
this day and age? I mean, Big Ten. I mean, you still have the markets there, but you could go steal Pitt from the ACC
true.
just for a region standpoint for most of the conference. Although that doesn't really help your West Coast teams.
Yeah.
Do you maybe
Um,
want to try and do a quick flip on Boise State as they're continuing to build up to the Pac 12 to the Big Ten, and then it kind of bridges you across all time zones? It's, I don't know. It creates a large thing. I think the ACC, this is the final hole that will expose the sinking ship of that conference, like officially. Um, but I mean, Notre Dame, I mean, Florida State and Clemson both have said that they want to leave.
yeah.
They need one dance partner, not two. They can't take both. So then it's really tough for how are these conferences going to decide what they want to take with them. Um, so yeah, I'll give you final reactions to that, and then we'll hop into our predictions here.
Yeah, I think the thing that helps Notre Dame from an independent perspective is how much revenue and how much, I guess you could say, influence the brand really does have. They have the
Sure.
exclusive TV rights deal with NBC that brings in a lot of money for the school. I think they
Mm-hmm.
made 55 million, I want to say was the revenue amount last year from their CFP run, which they didn't have to share with anybody because they're not in a conference.
Yeah.
And I think the thing from a, let's say, competitive standpoint that helps Notre Dame moving forward is the MOU that they signed allegedly, but nobody's come out to refute it with the college football playoff stating from 2026 forward, if Notre Dame is ranked inside the top 12, they are guaranteed a spot in the college football playoff. So, I mean, in that scenario, if you can keep doing what you've been doing, having a few good ACC teams on your schedule every year, rotating in traditional rivals. Next year, it'll be Michigan State and USC. Um, Having an opener against a Big Ten team in Wisconsin. Granted, Wisconsin's not what they used to be, but still a name. And then mixing in games against midder to lower tier American, MAC, those type of conference teams. I mean, they put Boise State on the schedule this year. So, having those opportunities and knowing, let's say you feel really confident that you'll win 10, 11 of those games and you'll be in the top 12 with the MOU, as long as it's not pulled back or anything, it doesn't fully, I'll say, incentivize them or push them to a conference just yet.
Yeah. I guess if they did, I love going off script, off outline. If it did push them to it and they somehow make some hybrid deal for TV and what have you, they leave the ACC fully. Let's say they go Big Ten, Big Ten's 19. I would say these conferences have to cap out at 20.
Yeah.
I would say like they have to.
I think
What
that's another issue.
what stops though these conferences, Big Ten and SEC mainly, from okay, the arms race is pretty much coming to an end. It's going to be
Mhm.
20 teams each. That's the NFL.
Yeah.
Like that is a 40 team minor league for the NFL, which it's, I mean, it's kind of been unofficially for years, but now with NIL and everything, that would be it. So I mean, what would college football look like for non, you
Yeah.
know,
I,
power two at that point?
I think at that point, if the Big Ten, I think they're at what, 18
They should
now?
be at 18 right now. So
Yeah.
they have space for two. SEC has
Um,
space for four. You have
I,
Clemson, Florida State, Notre Dame on the table.
I just feel like conferences as a whole have gotten ridiculously big. I hope that something prompts us to return to relatively sound numbers wise, geographically based conferences, and we sort of regain some of the sanity that we've lost in the past few years. Um, how likely that is a different story. So I think, I don't know, we really could wind up in one of those positions or those scenarios where we're looking at a situation that, like you were talking about, the Big Ten and the SEC kind of break off, form their own sort of competitive league,
Yeah.
perhaps not governed by the NCAA, where they can manage their own, let's say, NIL deals for players. They can manage their own TV rights, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And they're just competing with each other. And then you sort of have a second lower tier, which would be whatever conferences remain, right? Maybe the ACC and the American form together. The Pac-12 and the Mountain West absorb into each other. But I don't think that's good for the sport. So I certainly hope we do not proceed down that route.
Yeah, I hope 5-10 years. I we're at the fork in the road. I think we're at the fork in the road where college football needs to decide. Okay, is there going to basically be a professional league from this, or will it go back to what we saw as college football? Because conference realignment is not a new thing. It's happened since the beginning, and it's yeah, I don't know. I think as NIL continues to normalize, as paying the players normalize, we figure out kind of these unofficial, official salary caps.
Yeah.
I think that could be our moment to then come back to ourselves and go, okay, everyone's making money. Let's go back to where we were. Like maybe instead of having the old Pac-12, you kind of have like a Pacific Northwest Conference. Now that you have Boise State who's building up, you could bring in Montana and Montana State, two very good FCS programs. So like you still have, your top contenders in the conference every year is like an Oregon or a Washington brand. But I mean, those are your big games. You need to go out of conference to get another big game, another big money game. So I hope that's the direction we go. But if we are going to go pro with some of these college teams, just do it. Just commit to it. But I mean, 5-10 years, if we're not, I would really like to, as you say, go to the old, more regional conferences. So I don't know. Fingers crossed. Who knows? I mean, it's going to change a billion times between now and even just the next 2 years. So we'll also lay that to rest. I'm sure that will be another another topic of discussion for the off season.
For sure. And before we move on, I know, breaking news, just as we were kind of going on our little mini tirades about the poor direction that college football is headed in. I would say maybe not the decision to let this person go, but I would say the timing of it is a little surprising. The University of Michigan, per a lot of sources and per Pete Thamel, who I feel like is a pretty trustworthy source in the industry, has fired Sherrone Moore. So Michigan will be looking for a new head football coach in the coming days.
Wow. That's shocking. That's continuing to deviate from this non-existent outline that we've created this week. That is huge news out of Michigan. Wow. I mean, do you think that Brian DeBull's name, that's got to be plastered on that wall, right?
Yeah, I feel like Dabble is going to be a candidate that gets talked about frequently because of his skills in quarterback development. They have Bryce Underwood, who, while he didn't wow the world this year, you can see the raw skills, you can see the raw talent. And I mean, if you need a case study, look at what Dabble did with Josh Allen, turning him into one of the most electric quarterbacks in the NFL. But I don't know. I'm a little surprised. I guess maybe they waited until after early National Signing Day to keep some of the high school recruits committed.
But I'm pretty sure that once your coach is fired, you get like a grace period of 30 days to leave.
I believe so as well. So I don't know. Maybe
it didn't come in where they thought it would, and that was kind of his last great. I mean, they had a not bad season. I mean, they finished 8-4, 9-3?
9-3, yeah.
Wow. I'm trying to think who could be on their board, because like right now it's Armageddon for these coordinators bouncing back and forth. Like we can't even keep track of that.
The big name head coaches have all pretty much been snapped up, unless you're trying to help Louisiana State University out and pick up old BK and bring him to Ann Arbor. I don't think that's the right move, but he's really, I would say, like the only big name. Um,
I mean, Josh Heupel's
that's
name did come
three.
up for a second with Penn State, but he shot it
Mhm.
down. I mean, Michigan, I don't know. I mean, wow, there's Jed Fish, maybe.
Jed Fish, maybe, yeah. I don't know.
That's just, yeah.
I,
I
I'm
mean,
I'm a little
there's like no one
mystified at the
left.
timing.
There's like no one left, and I mean, like a lot of these like really good coordinators too, like Brian Hartline of Ohio State. Now he's gone down
Like
to South
USF.
Florida to be their
Yeah.
next head coach, which I think is a great hire for them. Um, yeah, I mean, a lot of these programs they're settling into their position coach hires now. Like I believe there was 2 or 3 offensive coordinators just official this morning as well.
Mhm.
Um, wow, who went to Penn State again? Penn State's on the board. I don't even remember. There's
Matt
been so
Campbell.
much moving. Who?
Campbell.
Oh, that's right, Campbell at Iowa State. Yeah, and Iowa State's still open, right? Or did they?
No, they hired Washington State's coach.
Yeah, that's right. Washington State's on the board. Man, I can't keep track. I'm getting dizzy with all these coaching movements. So
Oh, all
Michigan, that's a
right.
huge one on the board.
So
Or off the board?
this is why he was fired. Apparently, I'm looking at Twitter, doing some live fact checking. According to Nicole Auerbach from NBC Sports, um, the reason they fired him is there was inappropriate relationships with a staff member. So I don't know, potentially a Mel Tucker situation, I
Oh boy!
guess. So they are
Wow,
firing him with cause. Um, yeah.
that's like 3 and 4 years, right?
Hmm.
That's you had Mel Tucker, Brian Harson, and now I guess
Now
Sherrone
Sharon
Moore.
Moore. Yeah. And Brett McMurphy of
Wow,
On3 has corroborated that story as well.
wow. Okay. Well, there you go. Michigan unexpectedly losing their head coach. Yeah, wow, that's a disaster for that program. Um,
Yeah.
already finally under the microscope of the NCAA because of questionable activities with John Harbaugh, and a gentleman of the Central Michigan sideline. So, wow, that could be they really. I mean, there's no one left unless they really want to pay for someone who just got hired or
Yeah.
re-upped. Um, so they're either going to really be in a hard spot with financials, or
I don't know, maybe I know it's not the Michigan way, but I guess if they really feel like they can't get the guy they want this cycle, just hire from within, perhaps, if you're not totally cleaning staff. Boost somebody up, have it be a transition year, kind of like Sharon Moore was a transition to get them through these sanctions. Um, and then I guess go at it next year, or like you said, pony up and probably overpay for a coach that just re-signed a contract.
I mean, I think Heupel is the only big name that did not re-sign
Mm-hmm.
anything. So I think that if you're going, I mean, you still would have to overpay for that because I think Tennessee would throw the bank at him.
Greg Schiano might be available.
Whoa, wow. Or I mean, you'd have to wait a long time, but wait till the end of the NFL season for any of those guys who might get fired if you don't
Yeah,
like what's already available. Wow, nightmare situation for. I still can't believe that Ryan Day has turned out as well as he has for Ohio
yeah.
State. I really did not like that hire. I thought they'd be fine, just not this good. They have got to be licking their chops. This is crazy. Wow. College sports. College sports. Gotta love it. All right. Now I think we can safely
Yeah, I
turn
think we're
off our
good for the
phones and go
picks.
into predictions. All right. Predictions this weekend. A couple games on Saturday, and then Oh, I may have missed one actually for Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. I will double check that right now and see. No, okay, that is the one that I have on the board. Perfect. First game, which is the first kickoff for us. We have the Celebration Bowl, South Carolina State, Prairie View A&M. This is the national championship of the HBCU colleges and universities. Um, yeah, South Carolina State, Prairie View, A&M. Prairie View, they've been better in recent years. I got to give them that shout out. This is a program that has usually struggled, I feel, or at least in my eyes. South Carolina State, very much a roller coaster. Every now and then they are quite good. Every now and then they are quite bad. Right now, I think they're building a pretty decent program down there in Orangeburg, South Carolina. So I'm going to take the Bulldogs in this one. I think this should be an entertaining game. Um, Kind of putting up like 4 or 5 touchdowns both. Could be looking at like a 30-35 type game at the end of it, but I think this will be good. And there's almost always like 2 or 3 electrifying like plays in this game every year. So something to keep an eye out for as well. Pat,
Yeah.
who we like?
Shout out to the Bulldogs. I believe this is back-to-back years that they are in the Celebration Bowl. Um, Chanis Berry has done a really good job with them, making them, as you said, a more consistent program rather than having those really strong fluctuations. Because I believe, I want to say it was 2021, maybe like Deion's first year, second year at Jackson State. They played each other in the Celebration Bowl, and after that, the next 2 years, SC State was just like horrible.
Yes.
So it's good to see them find that consistency again and sort of reclaim their title as one of the better, if not one of the best, HBCU programs out there, especially when you look at like NFL player output. With that being said, I'm going with the Bulldogs here. I think they are a really good FCS team. I think it's a shame. I know why they do the Celebration Bowl because of sort of racial issues and racial tensions preventing them from being in the playoff for FCS in years past or playing in FCS level bowls, we'll say, in years past. But I would love to see some of these teams in the
Totally
FCS
agree.
playoffs moving forward, especially now that we've got the Ivies in there as well. So give me the
That's
Bulldogs.
that's exactly what I was going to say. Now that the Ivy League has opened themselves up to the playoff, I would love to see the HBCU conferences do it, whether it's the conference championship. I mean, you can still
Mm-hmm.
have the Celebration Bowl in some capacity. It may not be the 1, 2, 3 teams because they're in the playoff, but then like you drop to the next best 2 teams from each conference. I think that would
Yeah.
be
Or maybe
amazing
make,
to still
I don't
have.
know, like it might be a nightmare logistically, but um, maybe, I don't know, put in a bye in between the first round of the FCS playoffs and the end of the season where it makes it more feasible that, let's say, the Celebration Bowl can slide into the first weekend of FCS playoffs or something like that. That way it is the MEAC and the SWAC champions still playing each other.
Well, we could do it. What's it? What's that trophy called? Is it just a Shield Trophy or Community Trophy?
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
play the very next year, week 1. I mean, completely different rosters, very soccer minded, but you still get the game. And then, like, I mean, there's a spotlight on you week 1, so I mean that
Yeah,
could be a fun
that could be
showcase
cool.
for the year to come as well. So I don't know. We love football. We're trying to make it happen. On to the Veterans Bowl this year. It is Troy and Jacksonville State. Both of these teams are coming in with their tail between their legs after conference championship game losses. Troy, I think they've got to be happy with what they put up last week against JMU. JMU, very good team. They were in that game and trading scores into the third quarter before the Dukes woke up. Jacksonville State just ran into a kind of brutal ending against Kennesaw
Oh yeah.
State in the fourth quarter of that game. They could have, should have won that game,
Mm-hmm.
but this was just the Owls' year. That was a team of destiny over there in Kennesaw, Georgia. But this game being played in Alabama, 2 Alabama teams, not a lot of sit outs, surprisingly, but one thing of note, Goose Crowder is out. He's been shut down for the season after the injury last weekend in the Sun Belt Championship game. I think for that, I have to go with the Gamecocks here. Before I loved Troy. I think Troy's kind of like been on a good stretch here, and I mean that was an incredible performance in the Sun Belt against a very, very, very good JMU team. I'm looking forward to that Oregon game with them. Um, but not having their starting quarterback, I just don't. I don't think that is going to be something that they can overcome against this Jacksonville State team, who does play good all round football
Yeah.
as a team. So yeah, once again, give me the Gamecocks.
Yeah, I agree with you on that pick. I think especially with Goose Crowder being out, that really hurts the explosiveness of the Troy offense when they got things kind of rolling a little bit. Yes, they were playing their backup for some of those weeks because Goose Crowder had a different injury, which he came back from. But they're clearly a much better, much more explosive team when he plays. Still, shout out to Jared Parker for really righting the ship. He had a rough first season there, replacing John Summerall. However, this year was a much smoother process. He somehow backdoored his way into the Sun Belt Championship. Maybe Charles Huff was already thinking about Memphis. I don't know. Um,
Incredible shout out to Sunbelt for keeping divisions. I want to put that
yes,
out there.
yes. Um, but yeah, I mean, great year for Troy, but I think this Jacksonville State team is just really, really good. I think, yes, the lower levels of the CUSA were really bad this year. Um, but I think Conference USA had some really good teams. Kennesaw State's a good team. This Jacksonville State team's a good team. Western Kentucky's a good team. Um, they were an
Hey,
interesting
Delaware
conference.
even. I mean, they didn't end up having the greatest finish to their season, but Delaware also very
Yeah,
notable season in a transition season for them.
and Montana State, or sorry, Missouri State as well, in their
Yeah,
transition season, getting bowl eligible, being approved to play in a bowl. Same with Delaware. Pretty awesome for both
love
of
bowl
those
games.
programs.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I like Jacksonville State here. They have quite literally the best rushing attack in terms of yards per game in college football. So I think you'll be seeing a lot of RPOs, quarterback runs, things like that to keep Troy on their toes a little bit. And that was one of the things that Troy seemed to struggle with a little bit last week against James Madison is when they had those explosive plays on the ground. So I do like the Gamecocks in this one.
all right. Same pick once again there. Now we have what could be one of the best non-playoff games, and it's going to be the first official bowl game of the season.
Yeah.
The LA Bowl with Boise State and Washington. Very few to no sit outs in this game. This is a great matchup. Boise State coming off of the Mountain West Championship game. They looked amazing against UNLV, pretty much unstoppable, I would say. It was not much of a game for most of it. The Broncos had pretty good control over it. And Washington, a step up from last year, definitely some falters throughout that season. We've mentioned it before. There is like kind of like rumors and murmurs that Jed Fish may or may not be leaving for personal reasons. His family may or may not be living in Seattle anymore. So I don't know if that's going to affect the team here. I think it kind of helps that like it is very quickly season ended, bye week for
Yeah.
conference championship, then bowl game. I think that kind of helps the team a bit. So then you don't feel it as much, but there's not as much time to talk about it. Um, but yeah, once again, I'm so happy about this bowl game. This is going to be a great start to the season. That being said, I'm going to take the Huskies. I think the Huskies just Damon Williams, should he not decide to sit out right before the game, I think that he is a game changer. And in a similar aspect, we said that if Madison played last week for the Broncos, that they would win. He had a great game. I got to give him his flowers. Very rarely does he back that up with another very good game. And I think that that's kind of the difference
Yeah.
in this game. I think both defenses are about on same par. Jonah Coleman, obviously for the Huskies, really good out of the backfield. Broncos losing their largest rushing contributor over the past season, and they were able to fill that pretty well, but not in the same regard. I think you put that battery between quarterback and running back. That is your game right there. I like the Huskies by 7 to 10 points, somewhere in that range. Very,
Interesting.
very, very entertaining the game though.
Yeah, I
Please
think
watch this game.
think the what is it, the LA Bowl presented by Gronk. I feel like this matchup, we should call it the unofficial Chris Peterson Bowl. Whoever wins, like we were talking about before this starts, gets ultimate bragging rights on Chris Peterson being their coach.
Chris Peterson might be back on the sideline for one of these two teams next year.
Who
We don't
knows?
know.
Yeah,
We don't
seriously.
know.
But I think, I don't know. I think Boise State's kind of come into their own a little bit. Obviously, they got lucky with the way the computers decided the Mountain West Championship, and you and I went into excruciating detail on that. But I
Let's go
feel,
Lobos.
I feel like, I don't know, that backfield has come around after starting shaky. We all kind of expected Sire Gaines to be the leading back for them this year after Ashton Jeanty left. But I believe Dylan Riley wound up being their leading rusher. And that running game is much more consistent than it was when they lost to USF, when they lost pretty bad to Notre Dame. I think the big thing for them is Maddox Madsen avoiding turnovers. Can he do that? Because in the games that they've lost, particularly the games that they've lost quite poorly, he's had quite a few turnovers. I don't know. I feel like we got to have some differentiation here. So I'm going to go with the Bronx in this one.
Okay.
Close out their official allegiance with the Mountain West with an MWC title, a bowl win, and then head into the Pac-12 aiming for, say, bigger and better.
All right. That is our divide. We could have a divide right here in our final pick of the week, the Pac South game of the week. And I mean, you could say this is game of the year every year. It does not matter if these teams are undefeated, if it is winless. There is the exact same amount of buzz. This is arguably the best rivalry in college football. Army, Navy. I always make a point to watch this game regardless of what my schedule is. It is so amazing. We have ties in my family to both sides. However, I did grow up very much leaning to one other side each and every year, and I feel like this is kind of a game. Unless there are rare situations where you come into it and go, like a few years ago, you had Navy very clearly like they were a potential playoff team. I think they got up to number 7 under I'm forgetting his name, Dobbins. I cannot remember the guy's name right now. But he actually did his service, went back and played for the Ravens in the NFL afterward. Great quarterback, amazing midshipman. And then a few years ago, Navy coming into a down year, and Army with one of their best years going into that game. So very rarely do you have this team is going to win. This year, I think Navy is a bit better than Army, but not enough difference to really decide like this is going to be who wins this game for sure. So I have to go with my default answer and say go Navy, beat Army.
Yeah, I don't think we're differing on this one because I am also backing the mids here. I think Navy is a very strong team this year. When Blake Horvath is playing, they look super, super competent. I think, unfortunately for them, when Horvath played poorly, it was the North Texas game, and that kind of is what kept them out of the American Championship this year when the tiebreakers shook out the way that they did. So I don't know. I feel like Army is ending the season on a pretty high note. Jeff Monken turned the season around. They beat UTSA, almost got into a brawl with them after the game. But I think
this is not last year's Army team, though.
No. I think that Navy is the better team this year. I don't know. It seems like Army Navy, like you said, is one of those games where it doesn't matter if one team is 11-0 and the other one's 0-11. It's going to be a back and forth affair the entire time. I just think that Navy's deeper this year and we'll say more well rounded or more well put together. So I'm also going with the mids here. Anchors away, and let's beat Army.
All right, we will sing second once again this year, getting our new, I believe it was 14-year streak. That was quite devastating as someone who does not watch Navy on a week by week to then have that, still have like the feeling of losing to Army for the first time in not my lifetime, but like my memory lifetime. That was very crazy, and obviously it's been back and forth for the last few years. So just a great rivalry, so many great moments, and you turn that on an hour beforehand just to get all the pageantry of that game. So we look forward to hopefully bringing Pac South to that at some point as well to experience everything. So we're differing on the LA Bowl. That should only add to the great matchup that is. And then we will be back again next Wednesday and go into our first round playoff and then a few more bowl games. So one of the best times of year. We have the holidays, we have football. It doesn't get much better than this. So for Pat, we will see you next week.